I'm hoping my media team, you're ready. Kindly, I will request that we rise up for both our Kenyan and East African anthem as we mark the official beginning of day 3 of the Pan-African Youth Convention here at the Kenya School of
Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu, jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike, umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
Thank you. As we remain standing, Your Excellency, for the last 3 days, we have been having a little challenge where we have been testing ourselves to know whether we know the people seated next to us. So every time we said one, people mentioned the name of the person seated next to them. So we just want to do that experiment quickly, and then we have a seat so that you confirm how quick we've been learning since day 1. So ladies and gentlemen, 1.
Wakiuliza tuko wapi si tuko jibag na jags, unajua kani kuroll mi rolling ina gang vile mbogi jo imecrack wana tukompea na bags luku authentic cheki kama ni shori napenda mwenye na ass hizi mapongi na switch mana girls sherehe ni daily hizi pande na ni must jibag gwethe adisia na jag
vroom vroom nimepull up na mrenga kauja ni rada majina ni godi au gota city ni kisplash makash si tulipanga jana uko juja na njaa ai
jibag na jag 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 tutauliza tuko wapi si tuko jibag na jag jibag na jag jibag na jag jibag na jag jibag
African Youth Convention. This is day 3 of this convention, and we have had amazing conversations with these young leaders here, drawn from across the African continent, industry leaders in different spheres of leadership, and also our local delegates here in Kenya. And I just want us to have a quick run through and prove we are from. So let me see representatives from political parties. Representatives from political parties, when I say that, you just say I, so that you rehearse for a job in future. Sawa sawa? So that we rehearse to be in parliament. So representatives from political parties. Those are representatives, Your Excellency, from political parties. We have Abija there from PA. We have Gabriela from OPIA Party. We have Ken Babu here from Democratic Action Party, and his blue shirt speaks for itself. We have Ndegwa from Your Excellency, the only branded youth leaders who know how to market their party effectively. Effectively is these 2 gentlemen who have been extremely active since the beginning of this convention, from the major, the largest, the most democratic Wiper Party. You guys didn't clap for that. So thank you very much. Those are from political parties. We have representatives from the National Council of Churches of Kenya. They are not used to saying I, these ones. Thank you very much. Those are from the National Council of Churches of Kenya. We have representatives from the civil society. Civil society, yes, civil society, they are there. I don't see spread truth people. I don't know why I'll categorize them. We have people from academia, especially from the Kenya School of Government. I said you say I. Let me try that again. You know, representatives from the academia. Thank you very much. And then we have delegates from outside Kenya. Delegates from outside Kenya. Delegates from outside Kenya, I'm requested that for you, you can actually yeah. And the name of, okay. Now, I'll give you an opportunity to quickly say the name of your countries yourselves. Okay? Because...
Hi, my name is Kehinde Omolara and I'm from Nigeria.
Is it good morning or afternoon? Good morning. My name is Violet Mienda Munsaka from Lusaka, Zambia.
Bonjour, je suis Bryce Yagan, je viens du Togo. I'm from Togo. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Garang Malong. I'm from South Sudan.
Good morning, Your Excellencies. My name is Kojo Saki. I'm from Ghana, Republic of Ghana. Thank you.
My name is Eva and I'm from Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. Thank you.
Good morning. He's Zibanet from
Best dressed international delegates.
Tumela Moteori from Lesotho.
Bonjour, Lisiana Emakwa du Cameroon.
That is from Cameroon. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So that forms, those are the composition of the delegates that we are having here that have been having this conversation. This Pan-African convention has been premised on 5 thematic areas that we have been talking about since day one of this convention. We have discussed women in leadership, and it was a very, very robust conversation, including up to this morning. The women have really put us to task. At some point, we almost agreed that all African countries are supposed to have a woman for president. But the discussion is still ongoing. And then we have also had discussions on climate change and food security, discussions on transformed economies. We have had discussions on knowledge management. And of course, we have also had the theme of democracy and governance. Those have been the areas of which we've been discussing here. And a lot of emerging issues have come up. A lot of emerging issues. Markets. The young people want to understand why Africa is not consuming Africa. Why most African countries are not consuming their own products from other countries. And it's a conversation we have had. On knowledge management, young people want to understand the issue of curriculum. And it was very intense conversation here when young people were discussing and asking themselves, why is it that some degrees in other African countries are not admissible in other African countries? And how does that then help the place of the Pan-African spirit? So those have been some of the emerging issues and very many more. So from day one, we had the resident coordinator of the International Labour Organization, who was here, Ms. Caroline Njuki, together with the chair of the Youth Bridge Kenya board, Honorable Caleb Amisi, who were able to be our guests and lead us through that conversation, together with panel discussions that, of course, was spearheaded by these young people here. We also had, on day 2, yesterday, we had Music Corporate Society of Kenya CEO, Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, who was canvassing the topic of music in reigniting the African Renaissance. And then, of course, we had His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, who had quite an amazing interactive time with these young people, both in the morning session and also had time for them in the evening, and we really appreciated him for that. And now we are here today, and I'm sure these young people are very enthusiastic to hear from you. Are you guys enthusiastic? Are you enthusiastic? Are you enthusiastic? Thank you very much. So what I'll be able to do so that I'm able to move quite fast, I'll want to welcome a representative from the Kenya School of Government to just be able to also welcome our chief guest. Then after that, I'll be able to proceed to the executive director. Okay, I'm being corrected there. So we'll have the executive director of Youth Bridge Kenya who will be able to take it up from there and lead us for the rest of the program. So ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Alex Materi.
Your Excellency, Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, my friend and our colleague, Peter Quest, the youth coordinator at the Kenya School of Government, board directors from Youth Bridge Kenya, starting with Frederick Okango, Honorable Sasha Wamai, and my fellow delegates. Good morning. Good morning once again. Allow me to start by expressing my gratitude to His Excellency Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka for accepting our invitation to be part of the conversation of steering the continent towards the Africa we want. Secondly, allow me also, by the same token, to appreciate His Excellency Kalonzo for always being available to young people of Kenya. If by any chance you've logged into any of the social media sites, you would agree with me that the Gen Zs now have a friend in the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. It is not my day, but in the brief summary that has been given by the moderator of the session, he has mentioned some of the thematic areas that we have been involved in, discussing, and trying to come up with a way forward to Africa. By and large, some of those critical 5 issues are very pertinent to the present and future of Africa that we have had now to tap into the wisdom, the knowledge, the experience, and the insights of those ones who are not necessarily young people, but we believe that they are authority in terms of where we want to navigate Africa. And that's where we made an invitation to His Excellency to also join us. His profile speaks for itself, years of service, both as a parliamentarian, as a minister, and as a vice president. To top it all, he has been a diplomat across Africa, navigating and also chairing several peace committees and ensuring that there is peace across the continent, starting from Sudan, and I know many other areas that probably he might be in a position to mention to when he comes here. Lastly, also let me, from a very personal experience, express my gratitude and also encourage His Excellency, the Vice President, Kalonzo Musyoka, to continue working with the youth. If you continue working with the youth, there is nowhere you're going to go wrong. Because if the youth constitute 75% of the population across Africa, and the median age of Kenya now stands at about 19 years, the median age of some of the African countries is actually lower. Meaning that if the youth are 75%, then they are able to make decisions that affect the entire population of their countries. And we are hoping that the leadership will continue trusting in the capacity, in the capability, in the innovation, in the invention, and in the wherewithal that the youth possess to be able to be drivers not just of the youth sector, but the entire African economy. Lastly, Your Excellency, allow me also to express deep gratitude. You know, I rarely share this, but immediately, in fact, before I graduated from the University of Nairobi and I was in student leadership, I was sharing with some of the student leaders here. The person who financed part of my campaigns was His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka. And you can imagine, by that time, I was still a very naive village boy from Kitale, walking into the office of the Vice President then, and saying that this is the agenda that I think we should pursue for university students of the University of Nairobi. But because of his mentorship and his support, I was able to be elected as Secretary General of SONO. That's where you clap. To put the icing on the cake, immediately I finished, I was lucky enough to have been taken under the office of the Vice President under a very good gentleman called Kaplich. And I actually did my attachment at the office of the Vice President of the Republic of Kenya. For me, I think it's important for me to share this so that you know that despite your background, despite your foundation, despite of anywhere you come from, despite your ethnicity, if you are Kenyan and across Africa, there are leaders who care for the vision that you have, the competence that you have, and the needs that you have as a young person. Probably I wouldn't have been here if I wouldn't have been given a platform to get an attachment at the office of the Vice President. It would have been a totally different story. But because we need to push and ensure that governments are responsive to the needs of the young people, that we create more employment, that we become responsive even to their plight. If there's issue of unemployment, how do you make sure that you've created more slots of employment so that you can cure the destitution and the hopelessness that young people face across the country? The way I said, it's not my day, only a message that I've received from young people, and I think it's essential for me also to pass it over to the former Vice President of our Republic. Your Excellency, young people say that they don't want a handshake, that they want a hand up from destitution, from hopelessness, from poverty. Thank you so much. Without further ado, allow me to invite the Youth Director of the Kenya School of Government, who will, after that, invite the former Vice President of the Republic of Kenya. Thank you so much.
Your Excellency, Dr. Kalonzo Musyoka, my colleagues from Kenya School of Government, all the invited continental participants, good morning. Kenya School of Government continue to be instrumental in providing platform for youth to interact, to grow their knowledge and skills, and of course to network. Your Excellency, we at Kenya School of Government believe that young people need to be involved not as participants, but also as part and parcel of development of this country. And that's why we continuously invest in the opportunities of having platform for young people at Kenya School of Government. The school has been very deliberate and open for issues of young people participation, inclusion, innovation, and all sort of things. So that's when Alex and the team came, we were very open. We opened our doors and welcomed the global youth to actually be engaging and, of course, understand what it means to be part and parcel of a bigger organization. At some point, Your Excellency, the young people are asking, is this a government institution? Because of the way it is structured, the professionalism, the cleanness, and of course, the value that they get for their time. And most of the time, you realize that when sometimes you go to some government institution, you realize there's no preparedness or the position of the youth are not factored in. So, Your Excellency, this is a big deal. And we continue to collaborate with the institutions that continue to support the value of young people. Our Director General believed that the platform of young people must be invested upon, and that's why we welcomed any idea that will continuously add value to this thing. So, Your Excellency, I want to welcome you to speak to these amazing people. Some of them are really eager. They've been waiting since the beginning, as advice has said, since the beginning, since Tuesday, to actually listen to you, and they can actually be inspired, and some of them will like to be mentored by you. I also want to say that there is a university of Kibabii University and the leadership is around. Where the team of Kibabii University? All right, from all the way down there to this place to just listen to His Excellency. So guys, thank you so much. Karibu, Your Excellency.
Thank you so much. Well, please be seated. Well, thank you so much, Alex, AED, for your kind remarks about what I was able to do at a time when I was in a position to do something. And I can only tell you I did what I was supposed to do. No special favors. You just have to do what you must do. I recognize, of course, our friends on the high table. When you are asked to name your favorite at the high table, I was expecting to hear Kalonzo, but I didn't hear any. That's okay. Tomaso going to Okango, or the beautifully dressed lady. It's so good to see you, particularly our young friends from other parts of the African continent. We say in Kiswahili, karibuni sana. We also used to say, Kenya hakuna matata. We lied. There's a lot of matata going around. In fact, you come to our country at a time when there's so much matata, and it's not negative matata, this time positive matata coming from the youth of this country. And we celebrate you. Of course, our Tanzanian neighbors, I personally believe the Tanzanians, we've seen a young man, a young lady from Tanzania, from Dar es Salaam. I think it's Tanzanians who have really no matata. And it's the Tanzanians who have done what the youth wanted, as according to the conversation this morning.
President, Madam Suluhu. So we all celebrate Tanzania. Of course, I think the Liberians before you, Sir Johnson Sirleaf, Madam, that time, and you never know. If only we embrace democracy. But I don't want to digress further. Allow me to make a written statement because this is important. And Youth Bridge Kenya, you've done well. I think the next time you go for convention, it will be bigger. That's my prayer for you. And it will encompass greater part of the continent. And this is going to be a game changer. Therefore, good morning, distinguished guests, delegates, and young leaders from our continent. First, I would like to thank the organizers, the Youth Bridge Kenya, for organizing this forum and extending an invitation to me to be able to make some remarks today. Friends, I strongly hold the view that the youth will shape
conviction because it is happening here today in Kenya. What a moment to be in Kenya, to be Kenyan, experiencing Generation Z led a peaceful revolution which has forever changed this country's governance. And nobody should be afraid. If it was unexpected, and I think the surprise element about this Gen Z revolution is what is amazing. It just, for us who are faith, who are believers, know that this is directly from God himself. What has taken place over the last month on Kenyan roads and streets, on X Spaces, on TikTok, on WhatsApp, in Facebook, Instagram. May I ask which other platform have I left out? I mentioned TikTok. WeChat. WeChat. And others? X. I mentioned X. What has actually happened in all these platforms brings to life this very discussion on the pivotal role of youth in fostering inclusive democracies across Africa. And the main theme is harnessing the youth bulge for the benefit of our continent. And we've been told by Alex that the median age is 19 years in Kenya. Kenya Gen Z's selfless actions prompted a Catholic Archbishop by the name Philip Anyolo only last week when the country was commemorating this year's edition of Sabasaba. And if you are not Kenyan, you could ask your colleagues over tea, what was this Sabasaba thing? It was a day when those many years, a team that was called Young Turks and others, leaders who took it upon themselves to fight for democracy in Kenya and for fight for their space, when they took to the streets in a place called Kamukunji, and Kenya changed. We ended up amending our constitution, removing a very offensive clause that was outlawing a multi-party democracy. Up to that point, Kenya was a de jure one-party state. And through Sabasaba activities, we removed Section 2A, and Kenya became a democracy. This was strengthened in 2010 when we inaugurated the Constitution 2010 under President Kibaki, whom I had occasion to serve under as his vice president. The Archbishop said, I quote, "We used to say you are the leaders of tomorrow, but indeed you have proved that you are not leaders of the future, but of this our time." End of quote. He delivered these remarks, as I said, during the special service at the Holy Family Basilica only a few days ago, in memory of 41 young Kenyans killed by police gunfire during peaceful demonstrations. Police gunfire. I had occasion to visit some of the morgues in the city mortuary for those of you who are Kenyans, and my heart almost stopped when I saw the brains of a young Kenyan, a Gen Z, blown off by a sniper's bullet who fired from on top of the National Assembly. 41 young Kenyans died. I completely concur with the Archbishop that his sentiments that accurately depict the social, economic, and even political climate in Kenya, which currently finds, in Kenya that the country currently finds itself in. Instead of imagining a future where their voices might be eventually heard, Gen Z declared that this is our time and we will be listened to this time round. In so doing, Kenya's youth gave life to Article 1 of our Constitution 2010, to which I made reference, which defines the sovereignty of the people as all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with this Constitution. And Article 2, the people may use their democratically elected representatives or themselves to exert their sovereign authority. This is what the Kenyan Gen Zs did. They did the incredible thing. They walked right inside Parliament and took over. Said, you elected us, we are taking back authority. And I don't know how many in Africa will have taken note of that. The president sitting at State House called it treason. Called it treason. Treasonous act. The Kenyans were acting in accordance with the Constitution, which is supreme. Friends, this was the first and most important step in understanding and interpreting what an inclusive democracy actually entails by our Kenyan youth. Inclusive democracy guarantees that every person, regardless of background, has a voice in decision-making processes. Because Kenya's Gen Z read the most significant document in the nation, Constitution 2010, and by the way, in his own words, that document says, this is the supreme law of the land. And the land here is defined as Kenya. Any other law, including utterances like those by President Ruto, which is in contradiction of what the Constitution says, such formulation is void to the extent of such contradiction. Because Kenya's Gen Z, the most significant document, as I said, President was forced to withdraw the Anti-People Finance Bill 2024 as part of a series of substantial concessions. Kenya's youth grabbed literally their sovereign power and authority as outlined in the Constitution. And if in this country, you know the 204 members of Parliament who voted yes because their hands had been greased with money, corruption, even in Parliament, are finding it extremely difficult to go to their constituencies and do anything, because agencies are saying they're going to visit with them. So it has become very unattractive for any leader to be called by their bosses and given 2 million, 1 million shillings to go and vote in Parliament, because they know eventually their electorate will catch up with them by just going to visit them. Later in the day, my big brother, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, will be coming to talk to you. And I spoke to him on my way here, and he sends his greetings ahead of his coming. Please welcome him when he does come. People went to visit him yesterday on his space. And when they visited Baba, we call him, he had to change his telephone number. Because the agency put the number everywhere. And maybe it's a measure of cyberbullying. Please be kind to Baba. But if they can do that to the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, imagine who else in this country. Transparent. You use vehicles which are gasless. I saw a friend from Lusaka, Zambia, a young lady. I spoke to President Akaide about a week ago. And he told me when he took over as the president of Zambia, he refused to buy any new vehicles. And his ministers were very unhappy with him. But now the Zambians are beginning to see what President Akaide did. We need the kind of leadership. When I was coming here, and when you get to a tea break, you will see fewer gaslers because there are ministers with you in this compound. Each of them with fewer gaslers, with bodyguards, with all kinds of personnel. Kenyans are demanding accountability. By bringing Article 37 to life, which says that is under Kenyan Constitution, and allow me to use that Kenyan example for the leaders, the young leaders from Africa, in the hope you can use this as a test case. Actually, what is going on in Kenya should be a case study for the whole of the African region. Because Kenyan youth got so highly educated. So remember, this is a country that invented M-Pesa. And they get into space quickly and occupy. They occupied Baba's space. Under Article 37 of our Constitution, every person has the right to peaceably and unarmed, that is the condition, unarmed, to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to present petitions to public authorities. That's the end of that quotation. So Generation Z has done more to promote social cohesion in 1 month than the constitutional body that is charged with this responsibility, called the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, and to get all the political parties represented here, including Wiper, and all political leadership have done in the previous 14 years. We need to clap for Gen Z. Imagine they have taken over all what NSIC has been trying to do, and political parties to talk about cohesion and what have you, the rights under Chapter 4 of our Constitution, including Chapter 6 on leadership and integrity, which they're actually seeking enforcement for. By emphatically declaring that Gen Z are tribeless, partyless, and leaderless, you may help to eliminate tribalism and inequality, as well as promote sustainable development for all. I believe that African youth can similarly emulate Kenya Gen Z by claiming the rights inherent in their respective constitutions. There are other ways to strengthen the role of youth in governance. There is, for example, electoral participation that ensures youth are registered to vote and empowered to participate in elections. We can create youth parliaments and councils, platforms for youth to engage in decision-making processes that allow them to voice their concerns and contribute to policy discussions. There is also civil society engagement, and civil society in this country, for example, is strong. That encourages youth to participate in civic organizations and social movements, and that also enables them to advocate for change and hold governments accountable. You know, we used to hear of the Asian tigers, countries like Malaysia, Singapore, Korea, South Korea, and others, the Asian tigers, that within some space managed to lift their countries out of poverty to a situation where some of them are even contributors to international lending institutions. And I personally believe the time for the African lion has come. And we only achieve that dream through the African youth leaders. If African youth do what Kenyans have started to do, we are going to realize a decade for African lionism, where the economies will grow, where thieving leaders will be gotten rid of. In fact, if this continues, anybody with stolen funds will not even want to go for elective posts, elective positions, because they know they'll be held accountable. The practice in Kenya has been that people head the parastatal organizations and others, they go steal huge sums of money, and the election time comes and go and bribe everybody. In fact, Gen Z, I want to invite you to look at the next election. Where Kenyans were made to look so helpless by leaders telling them at the end of a campaign rally, line up. Women line up this way, the youth this way, the men this way, and you go, you have done your some hand-changing 100 shillings, bribing your mothers and your fathers and your brothers so that they can elect you into office. The Gen Z have placed those people on notice. If you are that type of a leader, you don't qualify to be a leader if you're already bribing your way through elective posts. For the young Kenyans who are here, when I first went to Parliament, I was very young. I was like you. I didn't have money. I just had a university degree, gone through Kenya School of Law. I thought I had something to offer. That time, although it was a single-party dictatorship, you were not allowed to spend more than 30,000 shillings at a campaign, one single campaign. Now, our legislators have even failed to enact some very important legislation, which was envisaged under Constitution 2010. That is of campaign financing. There should be a campaign financing act. And I want to suggest when current legislators come back from their, and the only institution left was the Senate, and I continue to say congratulations to the Kenyan Senate. When the country was facing a crisis, they refused to adjourn. The National Assembly, after passing that inoperative, unfortunate legislation on finance bill, actually adjourned. But they even made a terrible mistake. They said before we adjourn, we are allowing the Kenyan military to go to the streets. They passed. Move of the motion, and one contributor from the opposition side and Minister for Defense was given permission to deploy military against innocent Kenyan citizens. When they meet, I want to challenge, and Gen Zs, if you really want to complete this accountability game, demand immediate enactment of the Campaign Financing Act or bill that will come there, which will limit expenditure. That way, the young people will have hope to get elected. Because as it is, you have no hope. Because these other mandarins come with helicopters, with huge sums of money, they bribe the voters, and unless a natural leader then will never be able to emerge. I hope I've made that point. We can improve civic education for the youth, which will foster the understanding of democratic principles, human rights, and the importance of active citizenship. We can also increase the number of leadership development programs available to the youth that will enhance their leadership skills, that will also improve their critical thinking abilities and problem-solving capacities, and empower them to assume leadership roles in governance. Further, we can have a mentoring and intergenerational dialogue that connects youth with experienced mentors and that facilitates intergenerational dialogue to be able to promote knowledge transfer and foster youth's engagement. I hope Gen Z will also take that kindly. Yes, you also need a bit of mentoring. Nobody in the world has monopoly of knowledge. And you know, you come armed with a lot of energy. And some of us able to sit and say, wait a minute, I think you can moderate this approach or that approach. And this is why they are saying, Kenyans are also saying, because I heard that from Alex Matere, that they don't want dialogue. I'm going to mention later on that I was chair of a dialogue committee called the National Dialogue Committee. I co-chaired with a member for Kikuyu, not very far from here, who finds it extremely difficult to go home. Imagine my co-chair can't hold a meeting in his own constituency. Because people went to visit him. They visited him in such large numbers that he didn't have enough tea to give them. Time for dialogue must also be in consonance with the reality, the political reality of the time. I posit that there's nothing wrong with having dialogue, but Kenyans are saying we have had so many of these. Why don't we, first of all, we had building bridges, and with the BBI, Building Bridges Initiative in this country, a proposed constitutional amendment. Maybe Kenyans themselves, the Gen Z, can come up with an approach that will bring about a constitutional amendment to anchor some of these wonderful thoughts that Kenyans are not willing at the moment to deal with. As a co-chair of the National Dialogue Committee, that are pending in Parliament, if they are properly implemented, then this country will say, yeah, it makes sense to have dialogue. But what is the point of having dialogue upon dialogue upon dialogue and nothing comes out of it? So that conversation, I think, is important, and I want to invite all of us to think of the best approach and the timing. First of all, who is going to lead this dialogue and when? And are we going to take into account what has already happened before? Because, again, you cannot, as citizens, even as families, a family that sits together and negotiates and agrees on a formula to proceed even as a family makes headway. But we cannot just bluntly say we don't want any dialogue. The people of South Sudan, and I saw the name Garang That name is very, very important, very special to me, because I worked with our late brother, Dr. John Garang, who actually fathered the state of Southern Sudan, the world's newest state. I can see that by consensus, through some process of dialogue, they have even agreed to extend the interim period for another 1 year. And then they can have an election. And that was, I'm told, an agreement across the political parties and leaders. And I saw President Salva Kiir saying, at his age, he doesn't want to continue leading that country forever. Now that is show of statesmanship. Well, as involved engagement is vital in encouraging youth to use social media platforms responsibly for civic education, engagement, information dissemination, and community mobilization. Let me take this moment to focus on the importance of youth political party wings in fostering inclusive democracy and thereby enhancing the role of youth in governance. Many political parties, particularly in Kenya, and there are very many, we are not short of them. By the way, what you have seen here as leaders, people representing political parties, is just a tip of the iceberg. We have 90 political parties. But sometimes then we also taken the initiative, I'm sure, to coalesce around coalition making. I think coalition is very Democratic Action Party. He gave me the greetings of his party leader, Mheshimiwa Eugene Wamalwa, and I should have given you his because I was speaking to him as I was coming, because I don't know who gave whose greetings, because to manage a coalition, you must be constantly in communication. My own party, and I want to recognize these two young people, Edwin Musembi, the chairperson, University chapter of WIPA, and there's Moses Mulu, a youth leader from Nakuru County, right? They actually confronted, I remember that Edwin confronted us yesterday in the NEC meeting. You know, they are not waiting. These Gen Zs are not waiting. They just came and said, we demand our space. For a start, you people must expel one man called Farah Maalim. Hey, that's my deputy party leader. That was a demand, an express demand, because if a leader can say, if I was president, I'll kill 5,000 in a day. Well, I'm quite sure my deputy would say that was a slip of the tongue, because that was a very serious statement. We, as political parties, we need to be able to save lives, not to do away with them. So political parties in Kenya, in the region, I mean, looking at Uganda, for example, our friends from Uganda, from Tanzania, I know that President Kagame is going through an election in Rwanda. I talked about South Sudan, and I know that, yeah, Somalia has joined the new kid in the bloc within the East African region. And the day Somalia will be able to have political party organization and management of their country will be stable. Right now, the formations are in the form of 2-3 main clans, the Hawiyas and the Darots, and another one called 0.5 of a clan. Yeah, and then, because they're all Somalis, they're all Muslims, but because they come from different sub-clans, they were unable to even live together. But that's Somalia. That country is making tremendous progress, and that's why she's been able to be welcomed as a member of East African Community. Of course, it's Burundi. 7 members of East African Community. If we have a standard approach to political party formation and the engagement of our youth, I repeat, the time for the African lion to arise is now, and this is going to be led by the youth of Africa. If the political elite then truly take the youth seriously, we must quickly provide places for them at the table. If you don't provide, they will demand and they will take it. Our youth need to have an impact on party policy formulation and leadership selection because they may provide a new perspective on potentially outdated policies and ideas, including even the very important matter of what political parties stand for. Are you central? Are you left of the left? Are you right of the right? As is happening elsewhere in Europe. Look at what is happening in the elections recently in the UK, where Labour are to sweep back to power. Swept off the Conservatives because Conservatives are by their very nature right. But in France, President Macron had to very quickly assemble everybody, say the rightists are taking over because they took over the selection or election process to the European Parliament. A lot of things are happening across the world. Look at the world's largest democracy in India, where even Prime Minister Modi had to do something to stabilize the country. Now, we are all watching what's happening in America. You saw the debate between former President Donald Trump and President Biden. So, no, I'm not quite sure whether Kenyans should follow that example of the way they conduct elections in America. They call each other names. I saw Trump calling President Biden Sleepy Joe. Sleepy Joe. And they say, this guy, that guy. Yeah? But that is the extent of expression. Therefore, I think we have come to a stage in Africa where the freedom of expression, the freedom of speech should not be hindered. Provided, of course, you are guided by the laws of the land, which say if you abuse me very badly, I can also go to court. That should guide conduct. But beyond that, there should be expression. And the Gen Zs have said there will never be fear in this country. And I want to suggest that African countries express themselves freely. Absolutely freely. I am just about to conclude. Kenyans who are amongst you will have seen that I was at we call it Kenyatta International Conference Center 2 days ago, when the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission IB Amendment Act 2024 was signed into law by President Ruto. This was the first fruit of the 9 legislations agreed upon by the National Dialogue Committee. I did mention that I was a co-chair. As you may recall, NADCO actually was set up last year following the killing again by police gunfire of 75 young men and women during the Maandamano demonstrations against the peaceful demonstrations in 2024. The result, the Gen Z revolution. Although my political party is called Wiper Democratic Movement, I can tell you that dictators will be wiped out by youths, not in Kenya, but in Africa. So I think the name of my party is becoming a lot more relevant. Wiping out corruption, wiping out dictatorship, wiping out opulence. You know, Kenyans are amazing. They even look at the way you have stolen their money and you're wearing expensive suits. They even, I think, able to Google and see which shops you bought these things from. And they tell it to you. This minister must remain nameless, but I saw a minister when I was waiting to come here, a cabinet minister in William Ruto's government. And she told me, shockingly, that our own daughter was in the demonstrations against our mother and against our president. This is a Kenyan thing. The youth are saying, Well, even if you're in that government, Mama, I'm sorry, I'm out. We're getting our destiny. We'll not allow our country to go to the dogs. And she said, we have all learned our lessons in humility, thanks to Gen Z. No Kenyan will go about showing off what kind of car you're driving, what watch, what shoes you wear. Yes, they're saying, wait, and it's so biblical. They've even put order in churches. Nobody will go carrying 20 million shillings in a church function and donate it. They'll be asked by Gen Z, wait a minute, we know your salary. Look at the order that this, within just under 1 month, what has happened in our country. More importantly, Gen Z have shown Kenya, the region, the continent, and the world how youth-inspired active participation through representation, education, innovation, and policy reforms can bring democratic ideals to life, resulting in the defeat of authoritarian practices. I believe that if we are to realize any of our visions, be it Vision 2030, as in Kenya, or Agenda 2063, which is Africa's blueprint and master plan for transforming Africa into the global powerhouse of the future, then our youth must have their seats at the table today, not tomorrow. Now, not in 2030 or in the imagined 2063. That's too long to wait. In conclusion, it is imperative, ladies and gentlemen, to invest in youth development and create opportunities for their meaningful participation in decision-making processes, ensuring that their voices are not only heard, but acted upon. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. Another round of applause for him. Another member of my party has just joined us, a member of parliament, but he voted no. A member for Embakasi South, the Honorable Julius Mawathe. Thank you for... So he has no visitors to his constituency.
It's okay. Sorry. Okay. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Now, Karibu Mheshimiwa Mawathe. Mheshimiwa Mawathe is a member of parliament in the National Assembly from Embakasi South. Our ED Alex told me this morning
out in confidence and try
that
Nivea
tomorrow,
Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion.
all
now
the
with
delegates
5-in-1
who are
complete care.
coming from other countries
This
in
year,
Africa,
the African Leadership
he will be
University
taking them to a
embarked
tour
on the second cohort
of Nairobi.
the Silicon
So,
Valley
Alex,
Globe.
one of the areas that you might want them to visit is Embakasi South, so that they can experience of Embakasi South where no is a no. Now, I want to take this opportunity to invite one of the ladies delegates from Cameroon, but before I do that, we will moderate the next session. Your Excellency, the expectations of these young people is that they want to engage you shortly before you leave. These young people, I've worked with some of them in the political parties and in other organizations. They say that they are very happy about Kenya because Kenya is one of the countries in the world that has dedicated a whole article in the Constitution to address issues of concern to the people. One of them told me yesterday when I mentioned here that how come in the Republic of Kenya, in Article 55, it gives the states the mandate to take measures, including affirmative action, to ensure that the youth are not only protected politically, socially, and economically, but also from harmful cultural practices. What the Gen Zs are asking is an implementation fully of that article, because that article actually allows the state to make access to education for them, to make access to employment for them, and to make access for training for them. That is the problem. So I want to invite Lisiana from Cameroon to come and help us moderate the session for the Q&A to His Excellency Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. Welcome, Lisiana.
Thank you so much. I mean, and as we all already know, young people in Africa, we make up, the largest, youngest population of the world, actually, and with over 70% of young people, that are under the age of under the age of 30. And this demographic, it presents a unique opportunity for innovation, economic growth, and development. And we heard, from His Excellencies that, young people, as particularly Gen Zs, we have a key role and a particular role, to play for young people in strengthening governance systems. So now, we're going to take this opportunity, and take you back to you guys, because young people, we have the power. He wants to hear from you guys. We'll take contributions as well as questions, and we're going to be limiting it to 1 minute each. And also, I would like to say that, let some of our contributions and questions, let it be respectful, and let it be very concise, okay? So we're going to limit it to 1 minute per person, and we'll also be taking contributions as well, in addition to questions. So where's the mic?
Your mic down there. There should be one.
Okay, so we taking a set of 3-3. So I'll take it. So I want to hear from those that we haven't heard. Okay, I know we have some new faces here today, and I'll start from back there. Tell us your name, you're from, and you can proceed. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Enoch Kebaso. I'm a systems engineer. One question I want to ask His Excellency, Mr. Kalonzo Musyoka. What are the challenges you encountered? Because you said you entered into parliament while you were very young. You didn't have any money. What were challenges you encountered, and how can you, speak a little bit more about your debut into governorship and also legislation? Thank you.
I think you will start. We'll still remain at this row. I'll take another question from here.
Good afternoon, His Excellency. I have 3 questions. I have 3 questions. First of all, thank you for making peace for South Sudan during when you got independent. But the first question will be, I'm using the prophecy word, not if, but when. When you become the president, what will you do to specifically to your own party youth, and then to the African youth? Those are the questions I'm asking. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was told 3 questions per session, so let's hear from a lady, okay? A woman. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. My question is based on the demonstration. Sometimes in 2020, we had what we call the EndSARS in Nigeria. And I must confess to you that it was great like this until it was hijacked. We obviously know it's politicized, and then...
Young law student, you have granted University of Nairobi, and then Kenya School of Law advocate to the High Court, then helping some companies. I was employed by Comcraft Group. You see all that in my book, and I want to commend that book to you. So there are many challenges. When you are driving around and without a spare tire, and you don't know to make it to the next rally, how you get there, without money. And then the car, we named it a car. If you Google one of these famous movies of the time called The Car. We named it after the car. It's a miracle thing. And we just kept on going because we had a vision, we had a commitment, and the zeal. So challenges are never insurmountable. You can deal with them. What would I do, my friend Garang from South Sudan, even from the point of view of wiper democratic movement? I didn't indicate yesterday we were confronted with the Gen Z demands on what they want to do. In fact, one of the things they wanted to do, that's why they are so properly branded, they looked at the party colors used on the headquarters of the party, and they thought it was not the same colors they are wearing. So Gen Z threatened the executive director, we are coming to paint the party offices. Active action. But we must allow them space. Within Wiper Democratic Movement, we have a chapter which is called Young Wiper Democrats. Even the Women League, Wiper Women Democrats. So I think that other political parties may have similar. We give special attention to people with disability. If a young man called Keter, who is a chair of people with disability in the party, he stammers. He stammers, but he is able to communicate. So whatever it is, disability is not inability. He has an excellent mind and is able to contribute. So there's a lot that we can do, and we are determined to mentor the next generation of leaders. What would I advise to our friends in Nigeria? Nigeria, of course, is Africa's largest. Shall I say democracy? It's Africa's largest country. Kenyans have a joke about Nigeria, because Nigerians are very proud of their country. And if you watch CNN, you see Nigerian ladies promoting Glow or something. But there's this belief that out of every four Africans, one is a Nigerian because of their sheer numbers. And so the rest of the continent is very proud of Nigeria, because they know we know you're dealing with extremism in the north, in that areas of Kano, and the extremism is different, it can be dealt with differently. But this Kenyan mother goes to Nairobi hospital and gave birth to her fourth child. And suddenly she was in a depression. So she was asked, what has happened to you? She said, I gave birth to a Nigerian. Because she believed out of every four children, every four Africans, one is a Nigerian. That, of course, is a joke to tell you that Nigeria is very important, and when things don't go right in Nigeria, the rest of the continent gets affected. But so very little advice to give to Nigeria. But we think that even the Gen Zs in Nigeria, I think, have been coming up in Ghana. Yeah, in Ghana. The thing about Gen Zs is across board, because age limitation is very well defined. And if you enter their space, they can throw you out. So I think this agitation for open governance, so that leaders stop stealing from their people, that message should resonate across Africa. From Nigeria, our largest democracy, to South Africa, to Kenya, to Egypt. By the way, has it occurred to you, what the Gen Zs are doing is pretty equivalent. It's a very easy comparison to the Arab Spring, which swept across northern Africa. When a young student unemployed in Tunisia burned themselves up, then there was their pricing, which became eventually known as the Arab Spring. Swept across even Libya. We used to have the brother leader there. He was killed badly. And I think Africa at some stage must ask themselves whether what happened in Libya was correct, because that country has remained unstable since the demise of Muammar Gaddafi. But the Arab Spring swept across Egypt and everywhere. So the Gen Z revolution, I see, is going to sweep across Africa. And it is going to be the time that Africa will then come up. Because if we stop stealing from ourselves, stealing and getting dictatorship by the Bretton Woods institutions. In the 70s, I'm sure President Obasanjo may have shared about the debt issue, a debt problem in Africa. Himself is a very good example of how you can move from a military leader, call it dictator even, because military leaders are really not very democratic. He transformed himself, which is a very good example of how African leaders can, first of all, begin to change from within and then change the continent. President Obasanjo is a very good example of how you can create democracies in Africa. So I think that my advice then is nobody should feel scared by the Gen Z revolution because it's for the good of this continent.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your responses. As we see, His Excellency is a strong proponent, you know, for youths, and I thank you so much for the genuine heart that you have, you know, in terms of just empowering us. So we're going to move on to the next round of questions. So I'll take questions from this side, and I'll come back here. Later, again, like I said, we want to hear from new people. We want to hear new perspectives because some of us have been here throughout the conference, and I know we have new faces. So I'm just going to go all the way back here. I want to hear from you. Introduce yourself, tell us your name, and go right in.
Okay, thank you so much, Your Excellency. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tony. I am a Gen Z here in Kenya, and we are so glad to have you here today. So my question, actually, why? Because from the information that we do have is that Africa, in her bellies, we are endowed with the resources that are able to sustain us, and we can move our development goals. Why are we beholding to the West? The second one and the last one. All right, the last one. Okay, the last one is about Agenda 2063. If you look keenly, the people that come up with the Agenda 2063 will all be dead by 2063. Can we come up with goals that we can achieve when we are alive? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's stick to one question only, okay? I want to hear from the lady here.
Hello, my name is Audrey. I'm a student at Strathmore, and mine is not really a question, it's just a response to the question you asked. You asked when this dialogue will happen. I have a list of 4. When all those arrested and abducted have received legal justice, when all the police officers incriminated in the killings and illegal conduct have been arrested and charged, when the CSs implicated in corruption cases are held accountable and suspended, and there is already precedent for this set by Uhuru Kenyatta in his previous administration when he suspended 6 CSs, so it's possible. When the IEBC is fully reconstituted, signing of the bill is just part of the process. We need to see it through to the end. When the illegal arrest of youth brave enough to let their voices be heard are stopped. Just now, 4 minutes ago, Mushiri Mike was arrested. The charges are not clear, the situation is not clear. He's been very vocal about the movement, and it's still happening. So that is when dialogue will happen, if it takes all night or 100 years.
Thank you. Let's take it from the end over here, the far end. Let's make it quick and concise.
Thank you. My question is, in fact, let me start here. For the past 3 days, we have been talking about different thematic areas. I've been thinking as I'm sitting here, we are talking about culture. We are talking about education, and we are talking about women empowerment. And if we are talking about culture, in my culture, women were not supposed to work. Women were supposed to be married at the age of 15 to 20 so that they could take care of the family and make children. At the other hand, we are talking about women in leadership. We are saying empower women. We are talking about education. We are saying let women be empowered through education. Your Excellency, do you think we should visit the definition of Pan-Africanism? And one last question is, do we think the world, or Africa and the world is ready, the world is ready and Africa is ready for women to lead? I will make an example of Cyril Ramaphosa in South Africa. I don't think Cyril Ramaphosa won the election to be ANC president because he had the merit, but he was competing against women. I don't think after the Conservative Party expelled Boris Johnson, I don't think Liz Truss, who took only 45 days, we can say she failed. I don't think Donald Trump won the elections because on merit. I think because he was against Clinton, who is the woman, in fact, is the reason why I think the world is not ready. Do you think the world is ready for women to lead?
I understand we have a lot to say, but please, let's follow the guidelines or rule. Let's take up to only one question, please. I have the gentleman, and I'll take a last bonus question, then we'll, thank you.
Your Excellency, Kalonzo Musyoka, good afternoon, and everyone else. My question is to the African youth. We are always talking about democracy. Okay, my name is Victor Sankara. My question is to the African youth. We are always talking about democracy, but what I find out is that there's no democracy. Because democracy, as we all understand, is a system of governance whereby the people are at the center of everything. A government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But what we are witnessing across Africa, they are just pseudo elections where people are just imposed on us, and once they are imposed, they don't even work for us, they work for other interests like the West. So what must happen? These elections are just a charade. I think as Africans, we need to wake up and realize that we are not electing our leaders, and that needs to change. Thank you.
I think we're going to shift it to have His Excellency just answer this round of questions. Okay, should we take one more?
I can see the moderator want to gag my freedom of expression. Anyway, Excellency, thank you for your kind permission. My name is Kojisaki, Assistant Commissioner for Social Development, United Nations International Missions, and also my focal point to the United Nations. I'm so much happy that Executive Chair caught my eye and said that I should ask this question. Unfortunately, upon governments assume power, and after they have assumed power, they give opportunities and privileges to their party cronies. And for that matter, when it comes to elections, there are always leaders who are bent to seek implications on our continent. As a leader of a party, what is the assurance to our youth and other governments that when we assume power, economic privileges and opportunities will be spread across all spectrum of life? Because Delegates Kofi Annan, in his speech, said that you should not be only part of the problem, but they should be part of the solution. And in the same vein, United Nations has passed a resolution 2250, encouraging the youth to be part of the decision-making process. So on that call, I want you to make a firm call to our youth in Kenya, Ghana, everywhere, that our countries should be involved, the youth and all other parties, in governance structure. Thank you very much for the brief.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other international delegates that would like to ask a question?
Thank you. I don't have a question. His Excellency, I am Bright Shagan from Togo. I'm president of International Council for Immigration, Entrepreneurship, and Employment. We are working to discourage irregular and risky immigration. Our problem is not about irregular immigration. Our problem is how our brothers and sisters are dying in desert and in the sea in Kenya. When I was coming here, immigration service say, Brett, when I will go back to my country, in the airport, I'll say, Hakuna Matata, Kenya is safe. Because what is happening here concerns us as Africans. I'm not feeling like a stranger in Kenya. I feel like a home because Kenya is a good country. No matter how is the environment, what is very important for me is the Kenyan. Kenyans are very lovely. They are very intelligent leadership. Thank you. Asante.
So we have a party member that wants to speak to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Your Right Excellency, my incoming president, Kalonzo Musyoka. So my name is Edwin Musembi. I'm a member of the Wiper Party, and I'm also a student leader at Kenyatta University. I want to make it first clear that Kalonzo Musyoka is a paragon of hope and democracy in Kenya. And I will thank him for, first of all, giving us and the youth space to participate in such a conference. I would love to ask a question, but before I ask a question, I'd love to give examples. I want to... Okay, just a minute. The average age of Kenya, I've sampled the populations that are here, is 20 years. The average age in Togo is 20 years, Nigeria 18 years, and Liberia 18 years. The average age of Germany is 45 years. If you look at Germany, Germany is doing well compared to most African nations in Kenya. It's doing, in Africa, is doing a lot of robust industrial changes. You don't see that in many African countries with such a youthful population. We need to have an economic mimicry as Kenya and as Africans. If you look at also Rwanda, the growth rate is at 7% from 2010 to 2019. The growth rate of Kenya was 5% from 2010 to 2019. In 2020, during COVID, just a minute, during COVID, the recovery rate was 10.2% in Rwanda. In Kenya, was at a slow 5.4%. Now, my question to my party leader will be, what Kenya can do to harness the demographic dividend, particularly in manufacturing and technology? How can we emulate countries like Germany? How can we emulate countries like Rwanda as African nations? And I would like to give an opinion.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Thank you. I think I must tell my young party leader that patience pays. Leader. You can't enter it. If I can now start with some of the comments made. Why are our leaders beholden to the West? That's a very fundamental question, which came from Tony. I don't know whether Tony is still there. I think he asked and left. Ah, you're still there? Tony. Yeah. You know, this is a very important matter. I was once foreign minister for my country. Twice, actually, before all these other things. Our foreign policy as a country has been that of non-alignment. You know, African countries and some in Europe and others, our countries did not want to be seen to be pro-East or pro-West. And in the case of Kenya in 1965, and a very important document which was legislated upon in Parliament, led by then people, you may know people like the late President Kibaki, the late Tom Joseph Mboya, on session of paper number 10, I want to refer, young Kenyans to that document, sessional paper number 10 of 1965, on African socialism and its application to development. That's when Kenya again chose a position not to be pro-East or pro-West. Therefore, to hear that Kenya now is a non-NATO ally is a deviation. It's a deviation from that very important principle in terms of international diplomatic conduct. And it does place Kenya on a very difficult pathway. If extremist groups, for example, who don't like countries in the West begin to say this is an ally country, a NATO ally, and we are in a very difficult area geographically with the instability in Ethiopia, with what has been happening in Somalia, even Al-Shabaab having hit us here, not once, and us having suffered in 1998 following the bombing of the American embassy in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam. In fact, I hold the view, had the world taken seriously what happened in 1998 here during that bombing, where over 222 Kenyans died, and today a lot of them are still maimed, and we suffered for mistakes which are not ours. We were not even NATO allied. Therefore, this matter of NATO allies or not NATO should be discussed in Parliament and a position taken. And I think a lot of people agree that non-alignment is the best way to go. We don't want to be East or West. East or West, absolutely no. So thank you, Tony, for asking that question. Dar es Salaam did not suffer as much damage, but that again was a problem. Now, these terrorists were targeting American interests. Now they'll be targeting American plus Kenyan interests. Can you imagine? So, on arm's length, we are in danger. Agenda 63, I don't know which leaders you'll have eliminated by that time. They'll all be dead. Some of them were still young, I think. Those who are on average 40 years will probably be in their hundreds. But I think it is a vision, not so much the players. Not so much the players. So when they're setting Agenda 63, it was for the continent. We set Agenda 2030 here, Vision 2030 under President Kibaki, and we had even flagship projects which are going to make sure that this country is well endowed. I'll give you an example of what we had. And this is why the finance bill, actually these finance bills have been a terrible mistake. Because the effect of it is if you have what is called corporation tax at 40%, what you are telling people who want to invest, and there's such, I'm sure you have heard of FDIs, foreign direct investment. No company will invest in a country where they don't make any profit. They're in business. And so without manufacturing entities and companies being set up in Kenya, in our region, we will continue to have the youth budge. Young Kenya, but jobless. And the reason is people flee. In fact, I think our friends in Tanzania, President Suluhu was saying, this mistakes Kenya is making is a beautiful thing for Tanzania. Because companies are relocating from Kenya to Tanzania to set up manufacturing in Tanzania because the tax policies are more friendly to business. This has been our undoing, and the current leadership here, President William Ruto and his team, are listening more to IMF. They are given a prescription which they must follow or there's no deal. I think Ruto should have reported to all of us that IMF are trying to strangle him. And would have come to rally behind him. Because Africa said no to SAPs, as I mentioned earlier on, structural adjustment programs of the IMF. They failed. So we could also say, stop this habit of killing our economies, because at the end of the day, if you look at that way, maybe the problem is not even Ruto. Maybe the problem is those multinationals and the Bretton Woods institutions. And that is a problem across Africa. Now, having said that, I don't want to defend what Ruto has done. I personally continue to object seriously to the housing levy tax. That surely is what will take Ruto home. Yeah, because you cannot do that. Everybody earning an income, how do you even agree on which investor is going to build? And you think all Kenyans were born to be artisans, hewers of stone, and nothing else. Now some of them are very qualified people. They want to realize their professions. So, Tony, I'm just in agreement. But let me agree even with Audrey. Audrey, I thank you. I agree actually entirely. And as a lawyer, I can tell you I have nothing useful to add to what you said. The preconditions, because those are preconditions to dialogue. You're basically saying nobody is averse to dialogue. You cannot. As I said there, dialogue should be a way of life. And if there's no dialogue in South Sudan, which I was involved in, then nothing can happen. But dialogue in a situation like we find ourselves in our country should surely not be seen the way it is. So those conditions. I attended, those people abducted him, left him for the dead somewhere in Murang'a, and you expect that Okuya would want to have dialogue? First of all, he wants justice. He wants justice, and not just him. He represents the young law students and others like him. So I hope that the advocates of yet another level of dialogue will take note that perhaps people are saying they are not opposed to dialogue, but there are preconditions. Get things right. As a result, let's go for snap elections. Some of us have been saying this openly in order to allow the Gen Zs now to take space. I hope they're also registering as voters. And I can tell you, having run once for president, the most expensive item is providing 3,000 shillings per agent in the 15,000 plus polling stations, which are primary schools. If you calculate that, if you don't have billions, you can't even begin to think, to run. But I believe the spirit of Gen Zs can say the Gen Zs will themselves be the volunteer agents in every polling station. That will be the culmination of bringing true democratic liberation to Kenya. So that's my challenge to you, and I agree with you. As I said, nothing useful to add. Very quickly, Victor Sankara. Where is Victor Sankara? Yeah. You're very skeptical about democracy, and I can't blame you. Barack Obama, the 44th president of the United States, is regularly quoted on CNN by a lady called Christian Amonpour. Very brilliant lady. And she's asked, what is the future of democracy? Barack Obama says, democracy will win if we fight for it. Now, first of all, we are going to define what is democracy within the African setup. Clearly, African Union, and I was there, the transition from OAU, Organization of African Union, to Organization of African Union, that OAU, to now AU. In the Constitutive Act of the AU, African leaders have said no to military dictatorships because they are undemocratic.